while he's a good counterfighter, most of his work has been done with volume and leading and, ones and twos. He never throws long combinations, but he does throw an awful lot of strikes over the course of a fight. But he's very much a guy on the lead for the most part. And Whittaker is just running at him and pursuing him. If you watch, say, the first Vettori fight, Adesanya will land a good poking strike or whatever, and then he'll lean back as Vettori returns, and then he'll step out the side door. And Vettori stops, because he's not going to chase him once he realizes that like the first punch or the first two punches haven't hit. Whereas Whittaker is like running to try and get to Adesanya. So I know that I'd listened to the Heavy Hands boys earlier today, and I know that they're giving Rob credit for landing some good jabs and things like that. And I do remember in that first fight being like, oh man, Rob really does cover distance well. But also like, why is he, why are you still trying to chase this man down the train tracks? Everything, there's a lot of things that Rob Whittaker can do to make his chances in this fight better and to make it more of a fight. I feel like, saying that their styles are just matched up so that Rob will always get smoked or whatever is really reductive sort of thinking. I saw someone saying like Tai Tuivasa versus Lewis is an interesting match at least, whereas Adesanya versus Whittaker is not. And you're like, what? Rob Whittaker has so many skills that it is really just how he fights that is going to affect this fight. It's not like, I know that people are, and this is going to be like reflective on Adesanya too. It's the decisions they make and how they fight tactically within this fight that matter. It's not like nothing. They can both fight however they want, and Rob Whittaker will lose. Like that's such a weird way to look at things. If you look at fights like that, you'll constantly be surprised and impressed. But that's not how fighting works when you've got two really elite guys in there, and these two are so much better than the rest of the division for the most part that the decisions will matter. And chasing after Israel Adesanya with your chin out is a really bad decision for a good technical fighter like Rob Whittaker and a good rounded fighter. We talked a lot before about when Israel Adesanya moves back, there is a degree of moving back on a line, and then he does cut off the line when he takes the step. When he breaks his stance and goes to a different stance, retreating backwards. Or shifting back, so he goes from orthodox to southpaw or southpaw to orthodox. That's when he takes a step offline. But first he goes back, and he makes good distance going back. And the thing with that is, there's two ways to attack that. One is to use the movement to get him somewhere where he's going to struggle to use the movement the next time. You use one failed attempt to get in, or quote-unquote failed, because if you're treating it like you want to get towards the fence anyway, then no attack has failed if the guy moves. And then the other one is to hammer the leg, because he leans back at the waist and he leaves. There's always going to be one leg behind. The last thing to leave range is always the trailing leg. And you saw that in the first fight. There are a couple of instances, I think it's 3 or 4 times, Whittaker lunges at him and then he steps up into a low kick as Izzy's backing off and leaning back, and he hammers the leg for free. And when I say that, that's not an answer to the whole fight, but what you're doing then is you're taking away his, where in that first fight, all Izzy had to do every time Rob came in was move back and lean and then cut off the angle. When you add the low kick, you add a choice. There's something that the opponent has to choose one or the other. And that's how you can build effective striking. Because even if you're in with a much better striker, if you give them something where they have to make a choice between check or, withdraw the leg, but then your head's staying in range, or rather you have to stop retreating, or pull away, continue doing that, you're giving yourself a 50-50 chance of actually connecting each time. It's not like a clever setup. You're not tricking anyone, but you are bringing yourself into the fight by just saying I'm going to do one of two things. You have to pick which one you're going to deal with, and even a bad outcome is you land 25% of the time, or you get a chance 25% of the time. And the other thing about catching the leg with the low kick as he's retreating is that it picks up the leg, it knocks it off course, and you get a chance to follow up in. But then the important point of that is always I feel everyone against Israel Adesanya should be looking to use the fence. There is a huge caveat there, because Marvin Vettori fought him last time trying to use the fence, but in an especially silly way. Israel Adesanya is really good at using the fence to hold himself up. But having the fence at his back will cut off a lot of his movement out in the center of the cage. So you have to say, when I get him to the fence, that's when I'm doing my striking. Not double jab him back, which is what Marvin Vettori did. The double jab will work against Israel Adesanya because it's volume in the air. Like, if it hits him, great. If he stays still, great, follow with the right hand. But if he moves, you've got a weapon that's moving him back, and you have control of some sort on this very elite striker who you've been having trouble doing anything to. So if you have that little bit of control and you can double jab and he'll move back, you can start moving him towards the fence and cutting off his ability to move back. But then if you just drop on the hips every time, as Marvin was doing, like even in round 5 or going into round 5, Rafael Cordeiro is like, yes, double jab and then shoot on his hips. No, he's just using the fence to hold himself up. Why are you dropping on his hips on the fence every time? When you get a good mover to the fence, firstly, like, you can't treat it as the chance to take their head off, which I feel like a lot of people also do. If they get Israel Adesanya or another great mover to the fence, they go like, now's my chance. You've got to use it as a chance to, because the head still moves. If you watch Israel Adesanya when he gets, I was going to say cornered, but the corners aren't severe enough in the cage. But there's been like moments when he's been along the fence and he's not wanted to be there, because it's not like, even though he works on it a lot, like, I think if you name search me on Twitter, one of the top ones there, because he's so popular, is Israel Adesanya talking about me and Lawrence Kenshin, and talking about how he's drilling his ring craft and how hard he's working on like staying out of corners and things. But it still happens from time to time in fights, even to the elite of the elite, and then you have to get out, and that's when you direction change. You hip fake and you direction change. You go left, you go right, you go left again, or you go left, they swing, you duck under and go out the side. It's all about drawing that big swing to the head, and you've seen Israel Adesanya do it. I think he did it against Paulo Costa. Might have done it against Yan, but Izzy's great at it. Dom Cruz is great at it. Where they get you to the fence and you go, you want to play into that. You want to get off the fence as soon as possible, but you also want them to swing as soon as possible, because they'll fuck their chance up if they do that. Whereas if you watch like Dom Cruz versus Henry Cejudo is a great example, but like, when you put someone near the fence and they start circling side to side, they flatten out their stance to necessitate side-to-side movement. So rather than standing with 1 foot forward and 1 foot back, they start standing sort of like feet level, side skipping. And that's your opportunity to get to the legs, because the legs are now on basically a small strip of ground between you and the fence. They're not going to move. And to get his leg up and over the kick is very hard. To check while you're stepping side to side is very hard. If you kick and they do check, you're on top of them, swinging at them. So that's the really good time to start kicking the legs. Back people on the fence, kick them in the legs. It worked against Demetrius Johnson for both Henry Cejudo and Wilson Hayes. Got it by accident at a couple of points. But then Henry Cejudo got good and did it against Dom Cruz most notably. And Cruz was so lost that he was like trying to jump 2-footed over the kick each time, because there wasn't really anywhere he could go with his legs. He couldn't do anything else because he's on train tracks around the cage. And linked to that is the body shot. Like, that's the classical boxing way of dealing with it. If you watch Sandy Sadler versus Willie Pep, it's a great example. Pep ducks under every swing that Sadler takes at him along the ropes, so Sadler starts digging to the body instead. And you can't duck a body shot. I mean, you can, but you'd have to get like on the floor. And those are things that play into the fight long term, because like if you can do that several times, you can start setting up shots upstairs. I really like the right straight to the body of Izzy along the fence, and I really like it for Rob Whittaker here, because he has such a great left hook. He can use that to set it up. Also, if you watch like the second fight with Alex Pereira, I don't put too much stock in the Pereira wins, because firstly, the first fight he didn't win, but secondly, it's just a big connection in this second fight. But how he caught him was like his head came in, he looked at Adesanya's body. Adesanya just happened to be too close with his hands down. He got cracked with, I think it was an overhand right and then a left hook to follow up. But like, if you keep going to the body and the legs, you give yourself the chance that you can level change, look down and throw an overhand or hit him with the right straight to the body and come up with the left hook. I think that's how, if you want to be swinging at Israel Adesanya's head, that's how you want to do it. But you want to set it up with good ring craft, good footwork, good encouragement of getting him to the fence. He's a good hitter. He's not like death touch hitter. I feel like if Rob stays in his stance, even if he stands there and gets sharpshooted the entire night, I feel like he can take those a lot better than if he's lunging after Adesanya and just feeding him easy check hooks. So it's a case of like, keep yourself safe, stay over your feet, and double jab your way in, or jab an inside low kick your way in, or pick up the lead leg and drift in behind it like you're faking a teep. Those movements that chew up distance, those are what people need to be doing against Israel Adesanya. And Marvin Vettori has shown that will work in that context. But if you then do something retarded after it, like you've done the hard work and then you're doing something stupid afterwards, I worry that like teams will look at that and go, well, now that means the double jab doesn't work. Because like everything else being set aside, if we consider Israel Adesanya's excellence in MMA, a lot of it can be, everything everyone does in MMA is affected by having a fence there, whether it's wrestling, striking, whatever. And more you're seeing like the need to be able to control where the fight happens. And I think this links in really well with the wrestling too, because Adesanya's wrestling really is very strong when he's against the fence. And if you watch Marvin Vettori, like so much of that fight was wasted on like trying to drop on doubles and pull his legs out on the fence, where if you succeed, he's going to be sat against the fence, which is like position one of building up. Whereas if you watch like the modern cage wrestlers nowadays, a lot of it is upper body control, double underhooks, and then step inside. I mean, we talked about this with Shavkat earlier in the week, but step your knee inside and you try and hit the throw, turning them off the fence so that they land on their back facing away from the fence. Because then they've got the hard work of like, it's not even that they're too far away from the fence, but they're also facing the wrong direction. They've got to somehow turn themselves around to get to the nearest fence to put their back on it. And there are guys who excel holding guys down against the fence, and there are guys who excel holding guys down away from the fence. I think you have to look at it and say, Israel Adesanya, he's been good off his back in the center of the cage, but he's been better stopping takedowns and building back up along the fence. So if you're going to wrestle him, body lock, turn him off the fence. Don't fuck around for ages on single legs and double legs and dropping on his hips and just being pulled up again. Because he just stands there in that position with like his hands under your armpits or looking like he's trying to pull his pants up. And it's no biggie. And the other thing about like lower body attacks along the fence is that you can't strike off it. If you're in an upper body clinch, at least you can land some knees and things and add a little bit to your attrition game. But I think the real concern for me coming into this one